Hey, welcome to DALI Talk. We are here doing the Gareth Pursehouse trial. Mo did not have a chance to stream it, but it's only less than 2 hours today. Here with Mo, of course.
Okay, now it works.
Oh, good. Oh, I was wondering why you weren't answering me.
No, for some reason, sometimes it goes on, sometimes it doesn't. It worked like that yesterday for Nicholas. I had to put on my
Oh, yeah.
headset, and I was like, "What the actual crap?" Like, if it's not one thing, it's another some days.
Always.
And then, yeah, Griffin decided to growl again, so I don't know. He's telling
At school? He did it at school again?
I don't well, so I have a call into his doctor to see if he can have another dose of ADHD medicine towards the end of the day, but you know,
Fun. Oh, okay. EU, hey, EU and I got into a fight, and she insulted me and said something about all the guns we have, and I said something about kangaroos over there. But she'll be back Tuesday once we make up.
Listen, Linda.
What?
You said jump on my boring trial because I'm going to be all by my lonesome.
I know. I did not say that at all.
You did say that.
No.
Well, I didn't realize that I was going to be roped into picking up another kid at 5 instead of 4:30 like I usually am. So,
no worries.
Gotcha. Hi, Mo. Hi, Sal.
Hello.
Hey. Matt, how you doing? Pixie. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Oh, and my mother-in-law is lost, but she can't call. She doesn't know how to work her smartphone, and I don't know where she's lost, and she can't work her smartphone and call at the same time. So I think she's in Illinois.
Totally.
And I'm supposed to call now. So I will be right back. I'm supposed to call her now. So this is literally the blind. Mo, the technical genius, am going to lead. This is the Donner Party 2.0. This is going to be great. I will. So I will be here, but I will be muted. This is going to be awesome.
No worries. I'm gonna go and start. There's our good-looking boy.
Somebody lied to you.
Seriously?
Winding down the trial overall in the next day or so. We do have Detective Carranza back on the stand.
Ooh, his face is very red today.
Pursehouse,
Like he found out he lost D-Day.
Number the Italian trip. Number 2? Yeah.
What
is this? I understand you want to take up the court's offer and be dismissed at this point. Is that correct? All right. And, I could have had my bailiff dismiss you outside, but I personally want to bring you in just to thank you for your sacrifice to be here in your service. All of you, I should thank all of you. But since you're leaving today, we're all very thankful to the attorneys and the court. Thank you for your service. And I hope you have a nice and safe trip to Italy. All right. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Of course, it's a juror going to Italy. It's probably Mussolini.
Yes. You really mean that? You really? Thank you, ma'am.
Should we say goodbye to Italian, Your Honor?
Jesus.
Ciao.
Hey, Lefty. Just didn't know. Mo didn't really. Court fee didn't come out until like 9 or 12:30 her time. So she didn't do it. And there's only 2 hours today. Miss Junior, I see you. Oh, he's smiling.
Mr. Avila.
Yes. What's court's permission? What's the next?
The next one's 133.
Right, and I'll go back to playing the recording in a minute, but People's 133 is a series of text messages, pages 8 through 8. Detective Carranza looking at one.
Okay.
The cell bride.
Seriously. Let me try refreshing.
You are,
Yeah.
the next one's 133.
Right.
Yeah, please go over to EU stream. Oh, I didn't even pin it. Crap.
I'll go back to playing the recording in a
Okay,
minute.
guys. So she is about a
133.
mile away, so I'm going to stand out in the front, and then I'm probably going to drop off the stream because
Okay.
I
No
thought
worries.
I would have time, but I didn't realize she's been driving around here for an hour. I mean, I shouldn't be laughing. I mean, okay, I'm going to go now. But
All
thank
right,
you
bye.
for having me. It was
Of
an
course.
attempt to get this trial
I
done.
know. Have
Bye,
fun.
Mo.
Bye. Oh, and migraine gain. No, he doesn't remind you of anyone, and nor does it lead credence that a struggling Austrian painter, might have made it to Argentina, reproduced, and then created a judge here. Never.
Not at all. I am going to.
All right, I'll be right back. I left you a message in private chat.
I saw.
I'll be right back. Okay.
Everyone's leaving me. What am I doing? I have no idea what the hell I'm doing right now. Oh, you're stuck in an airport, EU? That's no fun. I am going to start.
Is a series of text messages, pages 8 through H. Detective Carranza, looking at one of the Cellbrite reports related to conversations between Gareth and Dr. Amie Harwick's phone, correct?
Yes,
Now, you had Dr. Harwick's phone. We have to see if she kept those actual text messages in her phone.
the messages are on the cell right, which means they're in the phone. Because the cell right's a download of her actual physical cell phone.
But were there actual text messages on her phone?
Yes,
Okay, looking here at people's 133A, is this a copy of those text messages from her actual phone?
yes,
And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but for example, on the left side in gray, that would be text messages represented by Gareth. I intonated your number, recognize it now that I see it, if I'm allowed to text, and so on.
yes,
I'm just going to go through these pages quickly. One B is also a representation of those text messages we already went through with the jury from People's Exhibit number 130.
One sec. I wish there was more. I hope there's more stand up. Oh, your flight got changed? How much longer is that? Oh my God, come on. Why is this acting up so much?
Clearly, I'm back. I'm having a time. Did I miss all the good things?
No. Or yeah, you missed nothing. I don't know what is going on. Oh my God. I have good internet normally.
Did you break the internet?
I did. That's why we can't have anything nice.
they're on the cell right, which means they're in the phone.
I thought that was your
Cell
cat.
right's a download of her actual physical cell phone.
YouTube. Was it one too many World War II references that caused this issue? Buffering. But I've got buffer space.
But were there actual text messages on her phone?
Yes,
I
Okay,
want
looking
to
here at
find out why.
133A, is this a copy of those text messages from her actual phone?
yes,
And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but for example, on the left side in gray, that would be text messages represented by Gareth. I intonated your number, recognize it now that I see it, if I'm allowed to text, and so on.
yes.
I'm just going to go through these pages quickly.
Wow, this is riveting, guys. I mean, geez. Because it's law and crime video I'm playing?
Yeah, it is. I'm
Very-
super glad I'm here. Thanks, Sal.
Smart ass. Let me try turning down the quality.
Just remember this on Saturday.
Wow. Like 15 of you guys are here. You're ready for some entertainment, prime entertainment, and we get this. Wonderful presentation.
Try pulling it and redoing it.
Yeah. I'm gonna try another browser.
Ooh, you're awful jumpy too.
Also a thing, actually, F is a repetition. Let's see. Oh, you know what F is? It's a
No, this is riveting.
of 133A. So F is just a clear copy of 133A. Is that correct? A.
Yes.
I'm going to try to do it the old-fashioned way.
That's always a good time.
Oh, sure. Now this works fine. Okay.
It's just messing with you now.
Well, this one time at band camp.
Mm-mm.
Oh,
No, sir.
I interneted your number. Recognize it now that I see it. Yeah, that's what I use on tell all the girls. I interneted your number.
Hey, Sal, I interneted your number.
True. Well, no, you did my email and it turned out it was linked to my number. Go figure.
Well, yeah, but I interneted it.
That's true. Yeah, fair.
There's no audio for me.
God damn it.
I hear you. I just don't hear. Okay.
It's always something. Oh, goddamn StreamYard.
Okay, good. It's not just me.
Thanks for letting me know, guys.
Messages, pages 8 through 8.
Exactly, distant.
Detective Carranza looking at one. The Cellbrite reports related to conversations between Gareth and Dr. Amie Harwick.
Well, at least we got our number now.
Yes.
Now, you had Dr. Harwick's phone. We're able to see if she kept those actual text messages in her phone.
The messages are on the Cellbrite, which means they're in the phone, because the Cellbrite's a download of her actual physical cell phone.
But were there actual text messages on her phone?
Yes.
Okay, looking here at People's 133A, is this a copy of those text messages from her actual phone?
Yes.
And so I'm not going to go through all of them, but for example, on the left side in gray, that would be text messages represented by Gareth. I interneted your number, recognize it now that I see it. If I'm allowed to
I'm
text.
allowed to text ...
So
Yes.
I'm just going to go through these pages quickly. One
Well, I remember
B
when
is
you told
also
me
a
about her
representation of those text messages we already went through with the jury from People's Exhibit number 131. C, is that the same thing?
Yes.
And the middle one here, is this the one where at the end, she ends it with, and move forward with our lives?
With our own lives, yes.
Yes, thank you. And
Oh, Thank you.
page D, that's also a physical text message that's also represented in the Cellbrite report. E, same thing.
Yes.
And F is also the same. Actually, F is a repetition. You know what F is a clear of 133A. So F is just a clear copy of 133A. Is that correct?
Reach around.
A.
Yes.
Oh, Sal.
And so is H. It's a clear copy of the previous page we identified where the text was and move forward with our own lives.
Yes.
On her cell phone, were you able to also extract any Nest camera videos?
Yes, we were able to.
Okay, about how many Nest camera videos were on her actual cell phone?
About 75 Nest video clips. Some are 2 seconds in duration, which were like motion activated. And there was a couple that were a little bit longer, maybe a minute. There were some females that were in her residence walking around talking about the decorations.
And looking at all the Nest video, what was the time of the last Nest video on her cell phone?
The last recorded Nest clip that I found on the cell site was February 14th, 2020 at 6:41 p.m. And it was a motion activation by a spider web that happened to be in front of the Nest camera, which is inside her living room area.
So there are no Nest videos.
Following the speculation that it's a spider web that triggered.
Okay, there was, you can see a spider web in front of the camera, right?
Yes, Ron.
You can't say whether indeed it triggered it. You're suspecting it did, right?
Well, I believe it triggered it. Ron.
Okay,
I
yeah.
believe there's actually several clips from that same spider web that activate the camera.
Well, perhaps, but you can't say conclusively that it did. It appears to be.
Your
It
Honor,
appears to be, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I have a DVD with
Motion
that
striker on.
Hold on.
with that particular video clip.
I've seen the spider web on front.
But this is that was from, I believe, a different occasion. This is the last video clip from the Dr. Amie Harwick's actual cell phone.
Okay, and it may well be that a spider web appears, or a spider, or what have you. We can't conclusively state that it.
No.
That's the objection. It's
house was
I will
dirty.
strike it. Go ahead.
A dirty woman.
The video is what it is, so
Yeah,
I'm just gonna play
Sure.
it.
Go ahead.
Dust, woman.
Isn't it an exterior camera?
No, I think there was one inside.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
And there was like
exterior.
a-
Like you want her to
yeah.
dust outside?
No,
You can play one
no, I
more
think it was
time.
inside.
How long is the
Otherwise,
video
it
clip?
looked like an
About
ass.
2 seconds. The short motion activated clips are about 2 seconds length.
Okay, and what's shown on this People's 134, is that what you were describing?
Yes,
And is this the last Nest camera video on Dr. Amie Harwick's cell phone?
yes, it is.
And this was on Valentine's Day at 6:41 p.m.
Yes, that's correct.
Shit.
I'm sorry?
Hi, Josie.
Mark that as 134.
134?
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So there are no Nest camera video clips after that one?
No,
No. And did you also, on her cell phone, did you find any voicemail messages from defendant Gareth Pursehouse?
yes,
You want to have a CD that we already marked as People's 132? I have a transcript,
All right.
132A. May I publish the one-page transcript to the jury?
Yep.
EU is not here. I can't remember where she said she was.
I have so much I need to say.
Okay. I don't think everyone had one yet.
Sorry, Ron.
It's a,
I missed you.
I think she's in and out of chat though, so
okay. I think everyone has one now.
I think everyone does. So is this video, is this audio clip dated January 18th, 2020,
welcome back.
16:26?
yes.
Well, actually, what's the time? Do you know what the time was for this recording?
No, I can't recall the time recording this. Made on her phone.
Sea sweat.
You have just one moment.
Yes.
Well, let me play the recording and then we'll address that. But it's January 18th, 2020.
That's correct.
I have so much I need to say. Please give me a chance to discuss it, so I can discuss it.
Is that call at about 4:26 p.m.?
Yes,
And is that the extent of it?
yes.
Do you see any more text messages on Amy's phone from defendant Gareth Pursehouse?
No,
Do you see any voicemail messages that he's able to leave after that voicemail message?
no,
Now, you also obtained the defendant's phone after he was arrested on February 15, 2020.
yes,
And was that booked into evidence as property item number 54 for this case, 2006-06-220?
yes, it was.
Looking here at two photographs, but it's marked people's next in order, people's number 135,
Yes.
A and B.
Yes.
Looking at people's 135,
Not good. C-swept, he escaped.
you tell
It's evidence envelope with the Mr. Pursehouse's cell phone next to it. As you can see by the envelope, it has my name and the reporting booking property and cell phone item number 54, the case number we were talking about in disability in this case.
looking at 135B, what is shown here?
That's the rear of the cell phone, the same evidence envelope.
And early on, were you able to do a download of the data from that cell phone?
Yes, the download was done on that phone.
And were you able to download the data on or about March 20th, 2020, and make copies so both the people in the defense could have a copy of that data?
Yes,
And were you able to look at the data on that phone?
yes, I was.
And did you use the same process, the Celebrite, where you download Celebrite report is generated?
Yes,
Looking here at people's next in order, it's a photograph showing what a Cellbrite options are. A screenshot of a Cellbrite reader. Did you see my people's next in order?
136.
136. By the way, how familiar are you with the Cellbrite program?
very familiar, having gone through numerous phones in my career in the last few years of being made aware of this technology and other cases that I've used. Very familiar with using this format, very, very user friendly. And it makes things a lot simpler when dealing with a cell phone download.
Can you tell us, looking at this exhibit, what is shown here on, see, the left part?
So the left part, if I use a pointer,
Yes.
the left part will have the categories of the download. As you go down the download, you'll see what's on the physical phone. Like for instance, here, applications 3, audio, there's 2,765 audio files. And that corresponds to the number of the item, like 6 documents. There's over 10,000 images on this download from the cell phone. 1,222 text documents and 5 videos. So this makes it easier for the user to
I'm
go.
sorry, can you go back to when you were saying the
Sorry about
videos?
that.
No, that's okay, the numbers are just busy.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
This makes it easier for us to go into different categories of the Celebrite to view what we're looking at. And it even has a timeline on here also that has 181, it captured 181 timeline events. And this is the format of the Celebrite, and it has the extraction date and time. And
See,
and also over here, it's the same thing as a right now, we have the same numbers. And pretty much we will click on that item and then it'll open up, for instance, if I click on the image folder here, it'll open up the image in a thumbnail view so I can go through each image to see what they are. The same thing for the audio files or documents or video files, which are only 5 on this phone.
and now where it says text, what does that mean?
That's a text document. It's, when I opened it up, it was encoded text files. It's not like a text message, but a document that was created on this phone or saved to this phone, and it's encoded with different numbers.
Were you able to find any text messages on this phone?
Objection, lack of foundation.
Oh.
Okay.
No text messages were saved on this phone.
How about contacts?
No contact list was saved on this phone.
How about call logs?
No call log, and a call log is simply a phone calls you made while using the phone, and you'll have, date on the cell right.
And looking at people 68, a text message from was a text message chain between.
Man, it's so jumpy.
Text message.
No.
Looking at people's exhibit number 58. Sasha Colson, did you find any of those texts? All right. You've heard discussion about the urine swab, property item number 34, correct?
Yes.
At some point, would you request to have that?
Yes.
And was that done sometime?
This isn't watchable, I don't think.
I know, it's pretty annoying.
Maybe they'll, I don't know, YouTube or whatever screwing up, but I don't think I'm going to play the rest of this tonight.
Okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'll get with Mo and see maybe she can cover it tomorrow morning. Yeah, I'm really sorry, guys. Yeah, that was really irritating.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, YouTube or
being
the
done.
stream. Wait, hold on one sec. I have an idea.
Uh-oh. I'm scared.
No, not too bad. Give me one sec, guys.
Yeah, what else you got to play?
No, I think I can download the whole thing and just play it in VLC.
Okay.
And then
You do you.
so it should,
Exactly,
in theory,
Lefty.
work.
I'm so scared.
Are you done? Downloading.
No, Pixie, not the peens.
Well, it's almost done downloading. Okay. Eventually.
We know, Pixie.
Yes.
And that's in Hollywood Hills, correct?
Yes.
The approximate location of 8148
Or
Cahora
not.
Street.
Yeah, it's still.
Back on February 15th.
Let's give it a sec.
Cahora Drive.
Cahora Drive, sorry. Actually, let me just. There's a paralegal that's going to be fired. Right.
Ooh.
It's between those two locations.
About 16 miles.
I have nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Detective.
Good afternoon.
So talking about the Cellbrite exhibit here. Looking at this, do you know what type of extraction was done on the cell phone to get this extraction summary?
The type of extraction?
Yes.
No, I don't know the type of extraction used by our forensic people. So I just know that what happens is,
I know, I'm just asking if you know the type of extraction.
no, no.
Okay, and do you know who did the extraction on this phone?
It was, I believe, Orange County Regional Crime Labs. I believe did the extraction of Mr. Purshouse's phone.
And what is that crime lab?
The Orange County Crime Lab is a crime lab that's run by the FBI that has local jurisdictions within Orange County, like Santa Ana Police Department, Irvine. And their job is to
Yes, we actually can, Jensen.
that we take for them.
Can distant.
So
I've got
do you
his
often take
contact
cell
info.
phones to them?
I have now, as of the past 2 years, I started using them strictly.
Okay, and so when did you take item 54, the cell phone that came from Gareth Pursehouse? When did you take that one to the Orange County Regional Crime Lab?
I signed the phone out of my property and I gave it to the detective that Bertie to take down there. He took that in November of 2021. He took that cell phone down there for an extraction by Orange County Crime Lab.
And you also took Amie Harwick's phone. That's item,
You know what? I need to correct myself. I'm sorry now. You asked me about Mr. Pursehouse's phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was done back in 2020. Okay.
could you look at your chrono if you need to refresh your recollection as to the exact date?
Sure. Sure.
Do you have that with you?
Yeah, I'd have to grab my giant binder there. I'll
Can I
grab it. With the court's permission.
Yes.
Jesus.
Sorry, I got 3 giant binders with thousands of pages.
A bit.
I can relate. Go to.
That phone went to Officer Scott Tubert, who is the, who works on the cell phone down in South Bureau homicide. And that was taken on February 27th, I believe,
February 27th,
2020.
2020. And were they able to do an extraction at that time?
No, they're not.
At some point, did you take Amie Harwick's phone to the Orange County lab for extraction?
Yes, I did. Or actually, detective my birth certificate.
Okay, and do you know when that was?
That was in November 2021.
Would that be November 16th, 2021?
That's correct, yes.
And that was after the preliminary hearing in this case?
Yes,
And that was after you presented your case for filing to the district attorney's office?
yes.
When did you receive a partial download from Amie Harwick's cell phone?
The partial download was consisted of 144 gigabytes. We received in February of 2022.
Would that be February 10th, 2022?
Yes, ma'am. And the partial is just not a complete download, just a partial.
So that was about 3 months after the phone was submitted to this Orange County lab, you received a partial download.
Yes,
Okay, and then you received a complete download after they were able to 2022?
yes, in December.
Okay, so it's a problem with law and crime on their actual
Yeah.
video.
Right. Yeah, it's still all jumpery.
I tried. Hopefully it'll be fixed tomorrow and Mo can do it.
Your people, they
Um,
want the peens.
Well, I don't know. He used dual stream. I don't want to be weird on hers. No. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll end it. I'll probably do it tomorrow, assuming it works. I'll take a look and see. hopefully they'll fix their crap. Then Saturday, Farrell and Christine have a stream.
We do.
Very special stream. And it'll be your first live, and Christine's as well.
Yep, for sure. We're gonna look at some Johnny Depp stuff, I think.
Oh, cool.
I don't know what else. We'll find some shenanigans to get into, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
David said he'd stop by. Sal said he'd stop by.
For sure. No, Pixie, I'm really kind of irritated. She said she would work on a request, and now I haven't heard back. Or work on my request.
What was your request?
I found some electronic exhibits to get. And like the computer data the forensic guy analyzed. Let's see. And just some other stuff. So she could be busy. So I'm just giving her a few days, playing hard to get. You know how it is.
You're not playing hard to get, Sal.
Sure I am.
She might be.
Good times.
What Anthony? Yeah. What is that?
Oh, all right. Anthony Tote. You can do the opening.
Okay. I'll be right back. I'm gonna go kick this cat out of my room. It won't shut up. Can you hear her or him?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go kick him out of here.
No worries.
Okay.
Okay. Or we could do Dean Cummings.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's do Dean Cummings.
Sure. What's that?
It's a skier who unalived a guy in self-defense.
What? Say that again.
Hold on. Dean Cummings, he's a weird guy, kind of. The case is so bizarre and really funny, and how bad the prosecutor is.
Listen, we've been down this road before where you've told me the case is real funny.
No, I've seen this before, so.
Okay.
So,
So,
present. Wow. I'm sorry, I'm like really distracted right now.
I've trusted him before, Lefty.
No worries, distant.
So are you doing opening statement on this or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'll probably end it. If that works for you.
Sure. I got all the time in the world.
Aw. Oh my God. Seriously, do they not have a hairbrush? None of these ladies
Where's
have
this
a
at?
hairbrush. Albuquerque, I believe.
instructions as to how to representatives of the state.
Branch to Dean Cummings. 2020.
One year, last year, Vance.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention this morning. I know it's a long morning, and now that you ate lunch, hopefully we won't put you to sleep. So thank you, though, for being honest in your answers so that we can pick the most fair and impartial jury for this trial.
Suck up.
This is a criminal trial, as you heard, commenced against the state of New Mexico against Dean Cummings. And I'm going to play for you a phone call from a 911 operator to the Sandoval County Sheriff's Office dispatch that was made on February 29th of 2020. And hopefully I can. Let me see, I bet my audio is on.
Oh,
Nothing like electronics.
this is going great.
Is it on the court thing?
Pardon me?
On the
They prepared.
podium thing? Because I have it plugged in.
Oh, good. Asking the judge for help.
As you do.
Maybe the judge's son for help.
That's okay. I'll proceed without it.
Pardon me?
I'll proceed without it.
Okay, if you need it, I'll keep coming in. Will you make it continue?
And trust me, it doesn't get better for the state.
Plugged in. And that was the last trial.
It'd be funny
No
if Dean Cummings
spoilers,
gets
Sal.
up and goes to fix it. I'm sorry. It'd be funny though if the defendant just gets
That's
up and
okay. I'll
fixes
proceed
it.
without it. Thank you for your time and attention, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing like technology to put a bump in the road, right?
Yes, old line red.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you heard, or you can guess from what this case isn't about who did it or how it was done. This case, the facts for you to decide are whether or not this homicide was committed in self-defense or whether it was committed with or without sufficient provocation. A second-degree murder is a homicide that was committed without having been sufficiently provoked, whereas a voluntary manslaughter is a homicide committed after having been sufficiently provoked. And the judge is going to give you the definitions to all of these things and what that law means. This case, ladies and gentlemen, is a case about reasonableness. And you, ladies and gentlemen, are the finders of the facts. The state has the burden of proof of showing that Dean Cummings, the defendant in this case, committed this homicide beyond a reasonable doubt. And the state will also show that the defendant, Mr. Cummings, also committed the crime of tampering with evidence. And that is because he washed his face, his hands, and changed his clothing after committing that homicide. And the state will also show that he committed the crime of concealing identity, because when law enforcement came and interacted with him, he didn't give his identity to them. The evidence is going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that on February...
Ms. Walker, IT person is here if you want.
That's okay. I'll proceed. It's fine.
Okay,
Thank
fine.
you.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is going to show that on February 29th of 2020, at Guillermo Ariola's ranch, which is way out
Guillermo
past Sandoval Beach,
Ariola's ranch.
in the far remote area of Sandoval County, New Mexico, a ranch that is so remote that there is no cell phone service out there. And a ranch that is so remote that law enforcement had to use GPS coordinates on the search warrants. The evidence is going to show that the defendant killed Guillermo Ariola in his trailer. And the evidence will show that Mr. Ariola had been contemplating selling this ranch to Dean Cummings. He had his realtor, Christine
Why are we
Landers,
talking about his
draft up a real
nipples?
estate contract to sell this property to Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings had time to contemplate the purchase of this property and had not yet signed the real estate contract at the time of the homicide. On February 29th, 2020, Guillermo Ariola drove out to his ranch out in Sandoval County to meet with Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings shot and killed Mr. Ariola with a Sig Sauer AR-15 rifle. This rifle had a 30-round magazine and a scope on it. Mr. Ariola was 47 years old at the time of his death, and he was shot 2 times that day. He was shot once in the head and once in the chest.
Aw.
Law enforcement came and processed the scene, and they recovered 10 casings, spent casings from that bedroom where he was shot. In Mr. Adiola's right hand was a can of mace, and that can of mace was facing Mr. Adiola, not outwards towards any attacker, but facing him and his body. You will be asked to determine whether the reasonableness of Mr. Cummings' actions when he committed this homicide. Were his actions reasonable when he shot and killed Mr. Adiola with an AR-15? Initially, when law enforcement went, Mr. Cummings refused to identify himself when the deputies made contact with him. And Mr. Cummings told the Sandoval County Sheriff's deputies that he killed Mr. Adiola in self-defense because he was sprayed with a neurological agent, presumably the mace. Mr. Cummings told deputies that he washed himself off to get rid of the neurological agent and that he changed his clothing. Now let's talk about the evidence that's going to be presented to you over the next week and a half. You're going to hear testimony from Christine Landers. Ms. Landers is going to tell you that she drafted that real estate contract for Mr. Adiola to sell the land to Mr. Cummings. She's going to tell you that she met Mr. Cummings and Mr. Adiola about a month before the homicide to go over this real estate contract. She's going to tell you that Mr. Cummings had his fifth will parked on the ranch property. And you're also going to hear testimony from David McCullough. Mr. McCullough will tell you that on February 29th, 2020, which was a leap day, he was out riding his ATV out in the middle of the desert.
Gronk is the only one I
was
know
on
that
peak,
covered
and
this.
He came upon Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings spoke with him and conversed with him for about an hour, and then Mr. Cummings asked him to come with him to witness the body. Mr. Cummings told Mr. McCullough that he killed a man in self-defense and he wanted him to witness the body. Mr. McCullough followed Mr. Cummings back to the ranch, and Mr. McCullough will tell you that he had medical training, so he believed he could render aid to anybody who was injured. So that's why he went back to the trailer, to the ranch, to see if he could render aid. Mr. McCullough will tell you that Mr. Adiola was past the point of aid being rendered. The defendant, Dean Cummings, told Mr. McCullough that he had used the rifle in the back of his truck to kill Mr. Adiola. Mr. McCullough will tell you that he saw the rifle in the back of Mr. Cummings' truck, and then he proceeded to drive to an area where he could get cell phone service. Mr. Cummings stayed back at the ranch while Mr. McCullough drove out to get cell phone service. The area was so remote that it took him several times to get in touch with a 911 dispatch. And you'll hear those calls, and they continue to be dropped. He made about 4 calls to 911. You'll hear those calls. Mr. McCullough waited for law enforcement, and then he led them to the remote area where the ranch was located. After Mr. McCullough called law enforcement, then Mr. Cummings also called law enforcement. You're going to hear testimony from several Sandoval County Sheriff's deputies. You're going to hear testimony from Deputy Hayden Walker. He was one of the initial responding officers that responded on February 29th, 2020. You'll hear that he met Mr. McCullough, and Mr. McCullough led him into the ranch. And you'll hear that Mr. Cummings told him he killed Mr. Adiola in self-defense because he was sprayed with a neurological agent. Deputy Walker placed Mr. Cummings in the back of his patrol car while they conducted the investigation. And Mr. Cummings tells the deputies that he placed the rifle on the porch and that he had the magazine, he took the magazine out, and they were both laying on the porch for them. Mr. Cummings tells Deputy Walker that he washed his face off and his hands and changed his clothing. You'll also hear testimony from Deputy Jonathan Crispin, and he also responded to the scene with Deputy Walker. They secured the scene. They made contact with Mr. McCullough. He collected some witness statements while he was there on scene, and then they secured the perimeter. They went into the trailer to make sure that there was nobody else that was injured, and then they held the scene until the remainder of law enforcement can come. You're going to hear testimony from Sergeant Thomas Griffin, another officer with the Sandoval County Sheriff's Office, and he was the on-scene sergeant out there at the ranch. He arrived with Deputy Gutierrez, and he was present when Mr. Cummings was evaluated by emergency medical services. Mr. Cummings told Sergeant Griffin that the clothing he was wearing at the time of the homicide was in the back of his truck. So Deputy Griffin collects those clothing, and he's going to tell you that the clothing was indeed wet, as if Mr. Cummings had washed himself off. Sergeant Griffin also assisted with the towing of the vehicles from that ranch. They towed the vehicle of Guillermo Adiola. They towed the vehicle of Mr. Cummings, his truck, as well as the fifth wheel. Sergeant Griffin also collected the evidence. So in this homicide, the Sandoval County Sheriff's Office called the New Mexico State Police, and they come out and they assist with the crime scene. So he collected the evidence from the New Mexico State Police that was collected from the scene that day, and he's the one who tags it into evidence. You'll also hear testimony from Lieutenant Frank Tomlinson, our case agent here. He was assigned this investigation, and he's the one who was in charge of making sure everything got done. Lieutenant Tomlinson assisted with the investigation while working out of the Sandoval County Sheriff's Office, which is right here in the courthouse, while Thomas Griffin was the one at the ranch because there was no cell phone service. They had to play telephone tag, if you will, to get sure the warrant's done. He wrote several warrants and he interviewed several witnesses, and you're going to hear about all of that part of the investigation. He also transported the evidence. As I stated, the New Mexico State Police assisted with this investigation by processing the scene, and you're going to hear testimony from Carlos Herrera, the New Mexico State Police case agent. He was the criminalistics agent, so he was the one in charge of making sure all of the evidence is documented and collected. New Mexico State Police arrived at the ranch after the warrants were granted so that they collect and document everything. He'll tell you about the processing of the scene. One person is assigned to take photographs. One person is assigned to scan the scene. And he was assigned with documenting the casings, the trajectory, where the blood was, and things like that. Agent Herrera is going to tell you that he collected 10 spent casings from the scene that day. He collected the mace, and he collected the AR-15 rifle. Agent Bogue, also to the New Mexico State Police in the criminalistics portion, she was assigned with running what's called a Leica scanner, and it's a scanner that scans the whole room, and she uses the information from that scan to create a diagram. And she'll testify about the diagram that she created that documents where the body is, where the casings were, and the outline of the house. And you're finally going to hear from Jennifer Otto. She is the New Mexico Department of Public Safety DNA analyst. She's going to testify about the analysis of the evidence that was sent to her for review and whose DNA was on what and what kind of DNA it was. And finally, you'll hear from Dr. Heather Gerald of the Office of Medical Investigator. She is the chief medical investigator there at UNM, and she conducted the autopsy of Guillermo Adiola. She's going to testify that Mr. Adiola had 2 gunshot wounds to his body. The first gunshot wound was to the head, and it entered at the right temple with a trajectory of right to left and downward. Dr. Gerald will testify that there was a second gunshot wound at the chest, and it entered at the supraclavicle region of the chest and exited the left side of the chest. As I stated, ladies and gentlemen, this is a case of reasonableness. A second-degree murder is a homicide committed without having been provoked, and a voluntary manslaughter is a homicide committed after having been sufficiently provoked. And the judge is going to give you the definition of what sufficient provocation is.
Yeah, guy.
Again, this case isn't about who did it or how it was done. The facts for you, ladies and gentlemen, are to decide whether this homicide was committed in self-defense or whether it was committed with or without sufficient provocation. This is a case of reasonableness, and you are the finders of fact. You are going to determine whether or not Mr. Cummings' actions were reasonable on that day when he shot and killed Mr. Adiola with an AR-15 rifle when he only had mace. And I surmise to you that the evidence will show that there was no struggle in the bedroom.
When he
That was
only
on
had
February
mace.
29th, 2020.
Yeah.
And the evidence will show that this was not a
Trying to
justified
take the
homicide.
rifle.
Mr. Adiola cannot speak
You gotta take
about
the
what
mace like a
happened in that bedroom
man.
on that day, but the evidence will show what happened on that day. And at the end of the case, the state, we're going to ask you to find Mr. Cummings guilty of second-degree murder or the lesser-included offense of voluntary manslaughter for the killing of Guillermo Adiola. And we'll ask you to find the defendant guilty of tampering with evidence for him washing his hands, his face, and changing his clothes after the homicide.
What?
And we
Of
will ask you
mace.
to find him guilty of concealing his identity when he refused to identify himself to the law enforcement officers on that day.
You can't
you.
wash mace off of yourself?
Apparently not. That's a crime.
Just sit there and let it burn.
And then he took his
I do
post,
like-
put it in his truck, and asked the detectives to test it.
I like how that was short and sweet, though.
Yeah,
Miss Moss.
just leaves a little bit out.
Counsel. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good afternoon. This case is not about who did it. Ms. Walker is correct, because Guillermo Adiola was shot and killed by Dean Cummings. There's no dispute in that.
Yeah, and I hate the
So
mask.
the question before the
I know.
court, before the jury, isn't who killed him, but why. And the evidence is going to explain to you why that happened. The facts that led up to the death of Mr. Adiola. Mr. Cummings told the police when he called 911 that day, he called them and he told them, "My name is Dean Cummings. I just shot and killed a man in self-defense." So he told the police that right away. And he told David McCullough that right away. Because after this shooting happened, Mr. Cummings reacted. He was in the middle of nowhere. And you're going to hear evidence, and Ms. Walker showed you some overhead photos of where this occurred, the ranch where this occurred. It was out in the middle of nowhere. It's a remote area. There is no cell phone service out there, not for miles. It's a place that is so remote. There are no neighbors. There's no other buildings. You have to drive for miles before you reach anyone or anything. And that's where Mr. Cummings found himself on February 29th, 2020. Because as you heard from Ms. Walker, and you will hear in the evidence, Mr. Cummings was looking to purchase some land. He grew up in New Mexico, Los Alamos to be specific. He grew up here. He spent his childhood in New Mexico before leaving for Colorado and then Alaska. And then in 2019, he returned to New Mexico. Mr. Cummings is an outdoorsman. He's a man who loves to be out in the wilderness, to be out in remote areas, to live off the land. And so he was looking for a piece of land back home here in New Mexico where he could build a home, start a new life. And Mr. Arriola owned property that was what he was looking for. This property out there, out near San Luis, San Ysidro area, near Cabazon Peak, remote, beautiful land. So Mr. Cummings and Mr. Arriola were planning this real estate transaction. And Mr. Cummings was excited about his future. And you're going to hear evidence about this real estate contract that they were negotiating. And Mr. Cummings had every intention of buying that land. And in the meantime, he was permitted to stay out there. He put his RV out there and he was allowed to stay in this little trailer. Mr. Arriola encouraged him to stay out there, encouraged him to get to know the land, the property, the trailer. There's some horses out there. Mr. Cummings was helping take care of the horses, feeding them. And that's what led up to this incident on February 29th. Mr. Cummings was staying there, as he had been told and encouraged to do, when Mr. Arriola showed up. He showed up unexpectedly. Mr. Cummings and Mr. Arriola started talking about this real estate contract, and they started arguing. It was a verbal argument in the kitchen of this small trailer. And while they were arguing, all of a sudden, Mr. Arriola attacked Mr. Cummings. Without any warning, Mr. Cummings was all of a sudden fighting for his life. Mr. Arriola and Mr. Cummings were in this physical altercation. It led down this very short hallway to a small bedroom. And it was during this physical altercation that Mr. Cummings realized that Mr. Arriola had something in his right hand. You're going to hear testimony Mr. Arriola was right-handed. You're going to hear testimony that Mr. Arriola routinely carried a canister of mace with him. Mr. Cummings didn't know exactly what it was, but all he knew was that he was being struck with this thing in Mr. Arriola's hand over and over again. During this altercation, Mr. Cummings was able to grab his rifle that he had had sitting there. He had recently purchased a scope and was putting the scope onto the rifle, which is why it was sitting there.
No, David, the trial was basically unwatchable. It kept pausing, long crime screwed up. So we're just doing the Dean Cummings trial from last year, I think.
He grabbed the rifle and he and Mr. Arriola started fighting.
Oh, shit.
What did you do?
His left hand blocking Mr. Arriola, who's repeatedly striking him. During this struggle between these two men, all of a sudden, Mr. Cummings realized that his eyes were starting to burn, his lungs were starting to burn. Something had been sprayed. He didn't know what this stuff was. But at the same time, he starts to feel this burning sensation. He feels Mr. Arriola pulling on the rifle. They're fighting over control over this gun. Whoever wins is going to live. Whoever loses was going to die. And during the struggle over this gun, the cap on the scope of the rifle comes off. And that's important. And you're going to see the evidence. You're going to see photos of that cap. That cap had been taped onto the scope with electrical tape. Mr. Cummings had taped the cap on with electrical tape, so it was on there good. And you'll see photos, and you're going to see the evidence that shows that the cap from that scope ended up underneath Mr. Arriola's body because it came off during a physical fight for control of that gun. During this struggle for the gun, shots went off. You're going to see photos of bullet holes in the trailer. That is important because those bullet holes, or we call them impact sites, a lot of times that's what we refer to them as, those impact sites tell the story of what really happened in that trailer. And you're going to hear from an expert who's going to explain that to you. But some of those bullets sprayed down the hallway and out of the trailer. 3. 3 bullets went out the trailer on the other side of the trailer from where the small bedroom was. And that shows how this fight was progressing and continuing as these men are fighting each other for control of this gun. They end up in this small bedroom, and Mr. Cummings ends up basically trapped in that room. Mr. Ariola's in front of him. The only way for him to escape is through Mr. Ariola. And you're going to see other impact sites on the floor in that bedroom. And those impact sites are really important. And you're going to have an expert who's going to explain to you why those impact sites are so important. And the reason that those impact sites are so critical is because what they're going to show you is that at some point during that struggle, the gun that ultimately killed Mr. Ariola, that firearm was upside down, almost on the ground when it went off. Again, the evidence will show that that gun was upside down, literally almost on the ground when 2 shots were fired. That shows you that there was a physical fight, a struggle occurring over that firearm. You're going to see that firearm. It's going to be in this courtroom. You're going to have a chance to look at it.
Scary.
And it's important that you take a close look at that firearm. Technology.
There's a light. There you go. It'll get going.
So wait, Susan.
Those lights.
There you go.
There you go.
There we go. This is a photo of that gun that was taken by an investigator with the Office of the Medical Investigator.
Ooh, scary.
Looking at there, this is the AR-15 that was involved in this struggle. What you see there is some kind of residue or spatter that dried on that firearm that is consistent with Mr. Cummings.
Cummings got spatter everywhere.
Yeah, maybe you don't want to, the sticky.
That's what
goo
happens.
On the gun owned by Mr. Cummings. It's kind of wild.
Story that something was sprayed at him that day during that struggle while they're fighting over that gun. You're going to be able to look at that firearm when it's in this courtroom. So those are the 2 important things about that firearm that the evidence is going to show. 1, this residue or spatter that dried on the gun. And 2, that the muzzle created those marks on the floor, showing that that gun was literally on the floor or almost on the floor when it went off at least twice. You're going to hear evidence from Dr. Gerald with the Office of the Medical Investigator, as Ms. Walker indicated. Officer Gerald conducted the autopsy of Mr. Ariola. And there's a couple of important details that she's going to tell you about what that autopsy revealed. First, the trajectory of those bullets. Mr. Ariola was shot and killed by 2 bullets. Both of those bullets entered in a right to left trajectory. One through his temple and downward, downward, and ended up in his chest. The other one entered on the right side of his chest and went through and exited on the left side. So those 2 bullets, both right to left in a downward trajectory. Dr. Gerald will be testifying to that, and you'll probably see some photographs that also help to demonstrate some of that. The other thing that she's going to tell you is that Mr. Ariola was intoxicated at the time of this altercation. He was intoxicated on alcohol. He had
last
cocaine.
names in this are great.
He had marijuana in his system. And Dr. Gerald will explain to you the significance of that combination of alcohol and cocaine when it's in someone's system at the same time. You're going to see photographs that detail the scene. And again, I explained, you're going to see photographs of those impact sites that tell you the story of what happened in that trailer. The impact sites that go down the hall out of the trailer. The other impact sites next to Mr. Ariola's body that show that the gun was on the floor when it went off. And you're going to also hear testimony from an expert by the name of Aaron Brudenell. Mr. Brudenell is a forensic scientist who has spent decades working with the Arizona Department of Public Safety. He's a forensic scientist. His full-time job is working for the prosecution in Arizona. He analyzes crime scenes, especially when there are firearms involved, and he reconstructs shootings. He took the evidence that was gathered by the New Mexico State Police and the Sandoval County Sheriff's Department. He took that evidence and he examined it, and he reconstructed what happened in that trailer that day. Mr. Brudenell is going to testify that he closely examined those impact sites that I've just briefly described for you, and he's going to tell you that the physical evidence that he saw is consistent with some kind of physical struggle occurring over that firearm. So at the end of this trial, there is not going to be a dispute about the fact that Mr. Cummings did shoot and kill Mr. Arreola. And the evidence is going to show that he acted in self-defense. The evidence is also going to show that he did not conceal his identity at any point in time. In fact, the evidence will show that he placed a 911 call to the police, identifying himself and explaining what had just happened in that trailer. The state has also charged Mr. Cummings with tampering with evidence, and I'm just going to briefly address what the evidence is in that. The state is going to ask you to convict him of tampering with evidence because he washed his face, washed his hands, and removed his clothing after this incident occurred. However, what did Mr. Cummings do with that evidence? What did he do with his clothing? Well,
exactly.
The prosecution's own witnesses are going to testify that Mr. Cummings put his clothes on the back of his pickup truck. And the prosecution's own witnesses are going to tell you that when the police arrived on scene, he told them where his clothing was. He asked them to collect his clothing and test it for whatever he had just been sprayed with. So the evidence is going to show that Mr. Cummings acted in self-defense, that he did not tamper with evidence, and that he did not conceal his identity. That is what this evidence will show. Thank you.
So yeah, that was the Dean Cummings opening.
That's so silly, the tampering with evidence thing.
Yeah.
But really, it's not like he destroyed the clothing. He kept it for them.
And
you're
washed
just
his
supposed to
face
sit there
off.
and burn. Just sit and burn.
And they never even tested his clothing anyways. Oh, it was infuriating, and yeah, he was in jail for like 2 years.
Well, don't ruin the ending.
Okay, I'm not going to. Gosh.
I think you just did.
Yeah, but he could have gone to prison after. I mean, he was in jail, not prison.
See, you just ruined the ending, Salbert.
He could, he can maybe go to prison. You don't know what happens. Oh yeah, I guess Lefty already did. God, Lefty.
I never saw what he wrote, so apparently not for me.
So yeah, it's been fun.
Wesley.
We'll be back tomorrow. And I hope to see all of you there. Oh, check out Feral Housewife's channel. Shush, MG Law.
Yeah, if only you had mods in there.
I know.
Slackers.
Oh, I do. Yeah, I modded everyone, then unmodded most of them. Let me try to pull up your thing.
I have it, so.
Oh, okay. And subscribe to EU as well.
I think her link's pinned, isn't it?
I think so. No worries, Lefty. So yeah, I'll let Mo know, and hopefully Long Crime doesn't suck so much tomorrow. Oh yeah, Feral's live stream is Saturday. I may stream after, maybe not. But I'll probably stream Sunday as well as tomorrow. So that's it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Toodles.